Not so long ago, we had a look at Lian Li's refresh of their AL120s in form of a V2 version. How innovative. No, jokes aside, thank you for the naming scheme. Like V1, V2, V3 makes stuff so much easier compared to the usual brain hemorrhage followed by slapping the keyboard with your head a bunch of times to come up with a brand new name for an upgrade. V2, great. And now, although we are a bit late to the party, Lian Li's UNI SL120 V2 RGB, because I got the SL and AL V2 fans at the same time and day zero release was more important than chronological consistency. These much blacker RGB fueled Lian Li fans are capable of spinning at up to 2000 RPM whilst pushing 64.5 CFM at 2.59mm of H2O whilst yelling at up to 29.2 dB. So just by spec, they are supposed to be slightly behind Lian Li's AL120 V2s in literally everything. But let's get straight to the benchmarks. Letting the fans spin at their max speed in our case benchmark, which creates inflated numbers, we found that the SL120 V2s managed to keep the system at 46.7 degrees C above ambient. This places them pretty much exactly at the center of every fan we have tested so far and slightly less than 1 degree C behind the AL120s. That being said, inflated numbers by roughly 3x, so in a real-world scenario that difference would actually just unmeasurable. But let's slowly lower the fan speed and create a noise to performance graph. Here we can see something very interesting. Although the AL120 V2s can push it slightly further, once the SL120s catch up, they are slightly in front of the ALs for the completed run. They even beat the Fantex T30 in 2000 RPM mode from start to finish, so a very good result. Not quite a Nokia NFA12X25 and definitely not our golden sample of a UNI SL120 fan, but very good. Switching over to radiators, where we installed an Arctic Liquid Freezer 240 on top of a 200 watts pushing 13700K. Here the Lian Li UNI SL120 V2s managed to keep it at 64.5 degrees C above ambient, which is actually quite the good result considering they just beat Nokia's NFA12X25. Compared to all Lian Li fans we have, it's also quite the interesting result. Although they landed on the last spot, it's not bad at all considering they come with the lowest static pressure of the whole lineup. On the noise to performance side for radiators, it looks pretty much similar. Here the SL120 V2s managed to be on the third spot for the majority of the run, but they beat the Nokia NFA12X25 for almost all of it, except for this little spot right here. And here is how they sound. So, performance-wise, it's very interesting, but if we only take Lian Li's AL and SL120 V2, it's really simple. The SL120 is the better case fan, while the AL120 is the better radiator fan. It's really that simple. Both do a relatively good job in both categories, but measuring them with a magnifying glass, SL120 for cases, AL120 for radiators. Now, for today I will not go deep into the whole installation and how to connect stuff, because we just saw that on the AL120 V2 video and it's literally the same thing. The only difference between the two is the physical location of the male and female connectors on the fan frame. Not because Lian Li likes moving stuff around, but because they need to make sure that people do not connect one type of fan to another one, because yes, you can daisy chain them together using the hooks. The physical part of it does work, but the connectors will just not align. But other than that, it's 100% the same thing. One controller, 4 cables, daisy chain blocks up to 6 fans, additional cable to have separate blocks in a single group, removable hooks for radiator and less stupid looking installations. Please refer to the AL120 video. Everything is in there. No, what I want to talk about is how they look, because it's totally different from what the AL looks like. On here we have an all-black 7-wing design with more aggressively bent wings. Additionally, the central fan hub, which houses the fluid dynamic bearing, is a lot smaller, creating a lot longer wings. On two sides of the frame we got the same type of matte black, metallic feeling type of block with silver corners, though it's shaped a lot thinner on the middle part than compared to Lian Li's ALs, which just create a bit of a different design. And now coming to the ARGB, on both sides of the frame we got those enormous RGB strips that travel down the fan, and yes, they do look as stunning as they did on the previous generation. So very similar to the AL refresh, Lian Li kept what was working. The same goes, for example, for the enormous rubber corners. Though I have a negative comment on that one, because compared to the ALs, the rubber on the SLs does not protrude, which is stupid. Sure, on a Rad or in the front of a case, it will very rarely create an issue, but mount them to the top of a case where you just have like a straight plate with holes, and these rubbers will not be the first thing that touches them. The plastic around the fan will, making the whole thing kind of useless. The rubber touches, but the plastic touches first. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But what does make sense is the build quality, because just like basically every other Lian Li fan, this thing is just a brick. Good luck bending it, good luck doing anything to it, it won't break. It's really incredible. Sure, Lian Li fans or UNI fans have a relatively thick border, probably costing them a lot of performance compared to fans that are just wings with a sheet of paper around. But this makes their performance even more impressive. Plus, it leaves you with a 28mm thick fan frame, which is basically unbendable, so very good job here. On the design side, I love that they kept the aluminum badge in the center, and compared to the AL series, this is just a lot cleaner for me. So sure, you do you, but if it were me, I would go for those just because of the more black design. That's something that does work for me. So where does this leave us? Performance-wise, they are definitely on the upper shelf in Noise 2 performance. Raw force or raw brute performance, they are good, but there are quite a lot of fans above them. And as I said before, they are definitely made more for case fan use cases compared to the ALs. Another thing to note here would be that the RGB is not nearly as much customizable than on the ALs. But not because Lian Li put like arbitrary locks on there, but because there are just fewer zones to customize. Yes, you can do the two strips on both sides, but there isn't much to customize if there is less light to begin with. But for me, that would never count as a minus. It's just a different design approach, and thus you have less customizability. It does make sense. But even if there is less RGB in total, they are still freaking gorgeous. Daisy chaining a bunch of them together and letting everything run over a single cable is much more convenient than splitters, and no matter where or how you install them, it is always just one hell of a beautiful block of cooling power. So if you are into the RGB, and if you want to use the least annoying RGB software to set them up, sure, I don't see anything wrong with them. They are not quite Nokia NF-A12X25s in performance, but they are definitely good. But okay, this should be it for Lian Li and their brand new SL120 V2 refresh. At this point, a huge thank you to Lian Li for sending them over. And on a side note, we also have a Discord server, so if you want to join, the link is down below. And of course, we still have channel membership, so if you're looking for a good way to sell your soul for an RG poop emoji, that's a pretty good way to go. Additionally, you can rest assured that the income will not only keep the channel afloat, but it will also serve to, yes, get another round of treatment. But hey, now I have like a stamp card, so every 10th RGB fan review I will get a treatment for free. Anyway, thank you for watching, and if you haven't seen the AL120 V2 review, make sure to check this one out, because there we will go deeper into the whole connection thing and how you can set everything up. And I just didn't want to repeat everything today again. It wouldn't make any sense. Hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.